Hey guys, this is Russ and Ashley, and we are She Wolf Alchemy. And today we are talking about the millennial to emotional support animal pipeline. Ashley, explain, because I feel like people are already confused.
I know I was definitely confused when I first heard this. I was like, we're what now? But basically, it's a concept like some social media person came up with about millennials. Like basically, we go to therapy so that we can learn about our feelings and all of the damage that was done to us, and then we go back and we train the boomers. And I also will include Gen Xers in this because my mom's a Gen Xer, and they are part of this. They're not to be left out. I feel like we give boomers a lot of crap and we kind of ignore them Gen Xers. I'm going to include them as well.
I ignore the Gen X's just because they're irrelevant to my life. Like for you, because that's your mom. My mom and my dad are both boomers. So the Gen
Mm-hmm.
Xers are just like my cousins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-mm.
And then they
I mean,
pretend that they are millennial.
I call them I call them the inactive generation because I feel like they just did nothing. They just continue to allow boomers to just overstep, and that's why we are the ones now still battling with them. Like, get out of power, get out the way.
Look,
It's because Gen Xers was like, look, I got mine. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. Like, I just feel like they never really stepped up to the plate. And
mhm,
I remember reading something that was saying like this is one of the first times where like a generation really did not step out of the way.
mhm.
Like boomers have not got the fuck out of the way, which is why we're the ones fighting with them. And now Gen Z is coming up behind us like, God damn it, boomers.
Yeah.
Like, we're all sick of you. Get out the way. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Oh, the way of the dinosaurs. Yeah. Um, it's interesting concept in general. So the video I sent you was talking about this concept, and it was like, yeah, essentially, like you said, like you broke it down and explained, we are we're going to therapy for the trauma they have placed upon us. And we are learning to communicate. And then we're coming back home and we're just like, hey, I'm grown. You can't do that. And boundaries. And now they're like boundaries. And we're teaching new words. We are the emotional dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, for them. And I think it's like fascinating because yeah, this wasn't a role I chose. I don't know about you.
Mm-mm. No, didn't.
Do you feel like for you, because I know you said you feel like you do that with your mom, how does it typically work for you in your life?
What to have to give like I mean, I guess it's like giving feedback in a way. So sometimes it's a little bit more upfront. Like I'll have some type of realization either because of the work I do or something like that, and I'll call and be like, you did this thing.
Yeah.
Or I just noticed this thing about myself, and I think it's because you did whatever. Other times, because I have a sister who is 15, so she's a Gen Z.
Yeah.
So they have moments, and like either my sister will call me about something or my mom will call me about something my sister did. And then it's like, it's my time to shine and like jump in and be like, well, you did used to do this. So are you sure you're not doing that to her? And she's like, I would never. And I'm like,
Not it's my time to shine.
it's when I get to interject. So yeah, there's times where she's like, I would never do that. And I'm like, yeah,
Half would.
yeah, you would, you have. It's kind
Yeah.
of a thing that you do. I don't know if you've noticed. And then I get to give some feedback in that way. So it happens like that. Sometimes just things pop up that I get to comment on, or sometimes I have my own realizations and I'm like, let me call my mama and let her know what the hell she did.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I've definitely had these moments with both my mom and my dad. I will say, in my experience though, they're a lot more open because I hear stories of people like trying to talk to their parents and they're just like, I put a roof over your head. Be happy. You're now successful. It's because of me. And that's not how my parents reacted. They both were, yeah, a lot more understanding. You know what? I actually, with my dad, it's really kind of great because like we got to have conversations. My grandmother passed away this year, and we kind of got to have conversations about like being able to sit and tell your folks, and I came to realize, like, they didn't really get to have those moments with their parents. Like, they just carried the trauma and was just like, "Alright, well,
Yeah.
that's it." And so me and him having those moments while, because my grandparents, he moved my grandparents in with him, and while he's taking care of them, and me and him got to have conversations about his childhood and how it affect him and why he did things a certain way, and also, like, that feeling like one of the some of the conversations me and my dad have is because his parents got really, really sick, and, he's taking care of them and how hard that is. And so when I was younger and, less sensitive, I used to joke around a lot and, like, tell my parents, like, all right, keep playing with me. Y'all know I'm the only responsible child. Y'all gonna be put in a nursing home.
Mhm.
Play me
Mhm.
what you want to." And, like, now, I'm older and obviously, and we have these conversations and my dad is like, "I don't want to be a burden to you. I don't think you understand how taxing it is to take
Mm.
care," and, like, that's a really big thing for him. Me and him have these conversations, and he's still like, "Rest, like, no, I don't want you to have to do what I'm doing." He was like, "It's so emotionally, physically, and just all arou mentally draining and taxing, and you do it because you wanna step up." But he was like, "But I wanna make it very clear, like, I don't want you to have to take on this burden because I would hate to be this amount of, whatever."
Yeah.
And it was good being able to have those because he never got to have those type of conversations with his parents. And
Mhm.
so over like the last 2 years, me and him have been having more convos about just how our childhoods impact us. And me and him got to have a really great convo where I was very blunt with my dad. I told him, like, some of the things I saw you do,
Mm.
your character, um, there's a thing where fathers can be really amazing fathers and terrible husbands, and they think it cancels out the other, and it doesn't. And I had to have that conversation with him.
Mm.
I had
Mhm.
to very bluntly tell him, like, "First of all, you owe me like 10 years worth of therapy money.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, you pay
Mm.
for undergrad, I pay for my therapy, so even." Like,
Mhm.
and we had to have those conversations, and it was really, really hard for me, because, I have a very complicated relationship with fathers. I don't know if you listen to any episode of the podcast, but it's hard because I love him so much, even though, like, I'm very aware, like, "Yeah, you're not Superman, and you're a man." Um, and it was really, really hard, but it was really kinda freeing to have those conversations, and, like, I remember the first time my dad told me he was in therapy, and I was like, "What? I've been
Mhm.
hinting that you need therapy for at least a decade now. Look
Mhm.
at you, making your little strides." Now, the therapy is not going as I would like it to go, but, he's going, and he's happy. He's getting things out of it, not the things I would prefer him to get, but he's getting things out of it.
I'm curious about something you talked about. So when you said that he was like caretaking for his parents, and I know that caretaking
Mhm.
is challenging, like it's hard anyway. But I wonder if do you think it's made harder because of the relationship that they had? Like I feel like our parents' generations are more like they have that sense of duty
Yep.
that
Mm,
like it does not matter how their parent treated them, what they
yep.
did, they feel like it's still their responsibility to show up for them. And it's I imagine it's so much harder than caring
Yeah.
for a parent that like you had an amazing loving relationship with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely think that's a big part of it. And I admire him. I admire him for stepping up, and I admire him for doing that, because, like, I'm talking now about my stepdad. Me and my biological father do not have it's no contact. I do not have a relationship with him. I don't think I've talked to him in over about to be, like, 5 years now,
Mhm.
and I mean that shit. Like, if somebody comes to my doorstep tomorrow and like, "Oh, he's dying, and his last wish is to see him," I'm like, he should talk to Jesus about why I didn't come." Because
Mhm.
that's how I truly feel. But that is a generation where they're like, "Okay, let me step up and do it."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our generation is very much like, "So let's talk about what karma is. You're about to find out." And they're very much the generation of like, "This is mama and papa, so I must care for them."
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest, just keep it on that note, I am curious to see what that looks like in 30 years because we are already having a crisis of overcrowding in nursing homes.
Yeah.
And we are having like our generation is a cutoff generation.
Mhm.
People are cutting off family members that refuse to change, that refuse to not be any less toxic, for the betterment of everybody. And so I'm actually super curious how that's going to come turn around because we are having a crisis in nursing home now, and I can imagine it's going to be worse. I can imagine we're going to need a lot more for the boomers.
I don't know. That's a valid point. I'm thinking about it and I'm like, because I know people who will like not speak with like even like we're talking about millennials doing it, but even like I know Gen Xers with their boomer parents who have like cut them off or like they really are worn out by it, but they're still they are in that phase of life of still trying to like plan something for their parents. Like
Mhm.
um I've worked with people in that age group, like in their 40s and like early 50s, who are kind of like you know, like
Mhm.
I don't talk to my mom because of blah blah blah, but I want to make sure she doesn't end up homeless because a lot of people when they retire into poverty. Not a lot
Yeah.
of people, yeah, no, a lot of people
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
They retire into a whole different income bracket depending on what was going on, you know, what they paid off, what they had happening, and so they need that support from
I
their kids.
don't I don't know if it was you or Neek, but I sent one of you guys a video. This was like sometime last year, and it was of a guy. It was like a TikTok or something of a guy. He was reading off a like Dear Abby type of like, but it was for finances. And he
Hmm.
was reading off the story. He was like, and the guy was like, me and my wife, we are 63 years old. We're close to retirement and we only have $600,000 in the bank. We're so embarrassed and we don't know how we couldn't have planned better. What can we do now? And then the guy, finished reading the story and he looked and was like, am I in trouble? They
Right,
out
because that's a lot of money.
$60,000 and
Yeah,
they're panicking. He was like,
yeah,
I got
right,
a Burger King group coupon
girl, girl.
and $64 in my bank account right now. Do I need to be more concerned? Because I was not worried about my future until he said that.
I don't even want to think about. My hope is just that we can retire. Like I
Oh,
keep
we,
thinking
we
that
can't.
it's like
We
I
can't. This whole week they've been talking. Okay. Sorry.
no, I refuse to hear that.
All right.
It is a
They're
goal
talking
of
about
mine.
raising it to 70. So, okay.
Yeah, I've heard people saying that, like, oh, to get it to the life, like, I don't think that's the route we need to be headed towards. But I do anticipate it'll be less of like I'm retiring to just sail off into the sunset and more of like I'm retiring to do what I want to do with my free time. Like, my mom recently retired. She's not doing nothing. She's like flipping house. She's like painting houses and shit. And she's
Mhm.
volunteering and she's just
Oh, sounds great.
refurbishing furniture and selling it. Like, she's having a great time.
Yeah.
But she's still making money in some way. But also, of course, she's like retired from the military. She ain't gotta worry about all that.
Mhm.
All the stuff us normies gotta worry about. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to
I,
get on topic of us being able to retire because it's just gonna ruin my night. But overall,
look, the amount of things that future Crest has to take care of, I feel bad for her because young Crest be like, I don't know. I feel like she'll have it. She's a smart girl.
that's
She'll
I,
figure it out.
I keep waiting on the me that will figure the thing out. But I also really, really don't want to work the rest of my life. So what I'm kind of hoping that partnership will help me save money. I don't know. That's my goal.
Mary
Like,
Witch. I mean,
he-
that's
I mean, not
marriage.
necessarily only that, but
Yeah.
just like by combining forces, like we'll be able to like combine our incomes and like save money in a way that I couldn't do on my own.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, I don't know. I don't know. Like maybe he take care of our president and pay these bills, and then like I save money for like our retirement.
I mean,
And then
my
we
plan.
raise children who love us and want to take care of us.
I mean, my plan. You said this to me the other day. I'm gonna be the rich husband. So like that's that's
Mhm.
the goal
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
now. The plan is really for me to be the rich husband. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. We out here working, making stuff happen and we'll see. We'll see.
But yeah, but back to your point of like, yeah, what is going to happen to the new elderly folks as millennials and I believe some Gen X, but as millennials, I really just like no, because I've seen kind of like what you're saying. I've seen the emotion. Like my mom, my grandma is the only one that's left, and she doesn't like need to be like cared for like a person. Like her health is fine,
Mhm.
Finances is crazy, but it's really her own doing. And so she needs support in that way. And so I see it weighing on my mom now where she's now starting to realize like I don't have to take this crap. Like she's for years held that sense of duty. That's my mom. I'm gonna call, I'm gonna help, blah, 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 blah. But now she's starting to like really realize one, that her help is not appreciated in the way that you would think that it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, to be real, my grandma had 9 kids. There's no reason she should be struggling. Like they should, if they all pitched in, she'd be fine. And it's not that they don't want to, she just makes it so difficult.
Yeah.
And because she's done that, they're starting to have these realizations of like, you know what? And she was definitely one of those when you're 18, get out of my house and don't ask me for nothing type of people. So they all had to work really hard their whole adult lives, take care of their own kid, like do everything on their own. And now they're kind of having these realizations of like, you was grown when you had me, chick. I don't really, it seems like you maybe should have set yourself up a little bit different. But again, they were willing to help. It's just that her behavior
Yeah. Made it
makes it
hard.
so hard. And she's not in a point. I think if she was like physically unwell, maybe, you know, someone would just take on the role because just out of necessity.
Mhm.
But because that's not the problem, it's just like, man, I'm not about to be sending you part of my check every month just for you to cuss me out.
Yeah.
I don't wanna. Got my own stuff to
Fair
deal with.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think at this point it's just fortunate she still got her health, to be honest with you. Because I remember asking my mom once, I was like, hey, like when I was younger, before I understood the world a certain way, I was like, would you like let grandma, you know, like live with you if she like needed? And my mom said, I don't know that lady. And I was like, why would you, what kind of statement is that? Like, that's your mom. And she was like, yeah, but you got to think, I moved out of her house when I was 18. I might see her once a year ever since then. And like we talk on the phone. So like, I don't know that. Like that's literally how she said. And to me, it was startling because me and my mom have a good relationship. And I've always
Yeah.
been like, you can always come live with me if you ever get to that
Mhm.
point. Like I want to take care of you. It would be my honor, my privilege. But like she's very adamant of like, nah, she can go on home. I don't know. I'll send a check, but
Yeah.
she can't live with me.
I And I know this is not the point of your topic, but that I actually had that thought the other day. Matter of fact, because my daughter was at her dad's house and she left her book bag, and he had called me like, "Hey, can you drop her bag up for school?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it just crossed my mind for some reason, like, "Hey, once she turns 18, like, you might go from seeing her on a regular basis to like not." And then I thought about it because when I turned 18, I could not wait to leave. I legit pick my school based on what was the farthest because my parents paid for my undergrad. I picked it based on what is the farthest school away from y'all?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because my parents were great parents. I was an 18-year-old. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted freedom, and I wanted to do stuff, and I didn't want nobody popping up while I'm doing stuff. And so,
Mm.
like, that's how I picked my college, and then after I got out of college, I was just like, like, I just upped and moved a lot, and also, I used to just travel, I wouldn't tell nobody where I was going. My mom would call me, but, like, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "Oh, Wyoming." "Why are you in Wyoming?" I saw they had tickets for $49, like, anyways, and I thought
Mhm.
about it, and I was like, "Oh, crap, there might come a period of time where this little person, I won't see them every day,"
Yeah.
and that terrified me as a parent.
Mhm.
But that's why you have to foster relationships now where, like you, they
Yeah.
can say, "Hey, come on and live with us."
Mhm.
Same thing with, like, my mom. When my parents divorced, I was, like, in Atlanta, and my mom had went to Texas with her sisters, and I was like, "Yo, there's no reason for you to come. Your daughter is here. Come here."
Mhm. Mhm.
But you have to foster that type of relationship, and when you don't, you
Mhm.
run the risk of really not having anybody out there for you. I'm
Mhm.
such a big believer in if you have kids and half your kids don't mess with you, it's your fault.
It is.
One, I side-eyed it. Maybe.
Mhm.
It could be that one. That one can have a
Mhm.
little issues.
Yeah.
Two, nah, I don't know. I feel like y'all did some stuff. Feel like y'all did some stuff. Don't
Yeah.
let it add up to more. Don't let it be
Mhm.
3 or 4. That's a you problem. I came across a video on TikTok. This was like a couple months ago, and it was
Mhm.
talking about like the difference about generations or whatever. No, it actually was talking about cutting off parents, no contact, what that's like. And of course, there was parents in the comments fighting for their life. But one particular one, like, just gave us all her information, just doing multiple different comments, and you can see why her kids don't talk to her.
Mhm.
But she was just
Mhm.
like, "Well, I was a good mom. I spoiled them kids. I gave them everything, and 4 out of 5 of my kids don't talk to me." Da, 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 da. And as people are, like, trying to tell her, like, "Well, give them time. And also, you might be different now than you were before, and maybe work on." And she's like, "I ain't working on nothing." And we was like, "Mhm,
Mhm.
mm.
Mhm. That's your problem
We
right there. Yeah.
we see why they don't talk to you."
Yeah. Yeah. The emotional labor is definitely hard work. But I think so going back to like us being that kind of segue into like guiding
Mhm.
earlier generations into like here's what emotional wellness is like.
Yeah.
It's like some people do circle back. Like after you're like in a good place for yourself, you can
Mhm.
have those conversations. It's like, okay, whew, let me try to mend the relationship
Yeah.
with my parents. Let me try to guide them. And if you're lucky, you know, you get someone who's receptive. If you're I don't want to say unlucky, but if you're, you know, also I guess if you're lucky, you just get someone who's not terribly resistant because you do have those people who are just like, you know what, I just accept that this is how my parents are.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to understand certain things.
Mhm.
Then of course you have a whole other struggle once you start having grandkids where your own children, and then you're like, I don't want you traumatizing my child.
Yo.
I want you traumatizing my child. Oh God, how do I avoid you doing that? Because I was watching something earlier as I was like, you know, thinking about this episode and just like looking stuff up, and she was saying how like she was giving examples of how like her son had started to cry and because he had to leave his grandparents' house. He had spent the day with them, loved them, blah blah blah. And the grandpa was just like, "Hey, won't do that here." And the grandpa was just kind of like, "Nah, you got to stop crying." You know, and like that was boom. That was them solving the problem. And versus like like it did not help the child. And she was like talking about the way that she helped her son, which was like she took him outside and she's like, well, talk to him about how he was feeling and like, oh, you're sad because of blah 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 blah, and hugged him and let him cry for a little bit, and then he was fine. And then just all through the comment thread, you heard people like being like, all my parents ever had for me was like, stop crying, or I'm gonna give you something to cry about, or like big boys don't cry. Just like stupid, these
Mhm.
little one-liners that we
We all
all are
know.
too familiar with. Yeah.
I do wonder how those type of things grow.
How they
Like,
get spread around.
yeah, because there's
Or
too
how
many
y'all
things from our childhood that we all have heard, and I'm just like, "Was there a movie?" Like, was there a movie where someone said, "I'm not boo boo the food," and every black mother was like, "Ooh, that's it. That's the one.
Imma use that one.
That's the one." Yeah.
I don't I would be curious to know the origin of some of these things
Yeah,
because it definitely spread around. Like, it's fascinating when we get online and everyone's like, "So we all live the same life?"
yeah,
Is that what was going on? Like, how did this happen?
really.
From coast to coast.
But going back to what you're saying, yeah, I think that is interesting. I'm even thinking it's more so like, because as we're talking about children, I'm thinking of like partnership of like, okay, and I have good boundaries, but you don't. So now
Mm,
what? Because
mm,
I cut mine off.
mm,
But you keep
mm,
letting this crazy lady in our house, and
mm.
now I gotta deal with her. And you
Yeah,
won't set a boundary.
yeah. Yeah, I know someone dealing with that, and they were like, "Yep, my partner's mom just keeps popping up at our house, and like, what the fuck?" Because because I have boundaries with my family, and they know damn well, like,
Mhm.
you call or you whatever, and her partner, and she's like, and it wouldn't be so bad except his family is very negative and
Mm,
they kind of gripe and fuss all day. And it's like, not only do I not want that out my house, I certainly don't want it unexpectedly.
yeah.
I really don't want it around my kids type stuff. But like, yeah.
My best friend, like, it's really important to her when she dates people that, like, you have a good family connection because she's super, super close with her family. It's really, really good. And I remember one time she was dating this guy, and his family just had a lot of stuff, just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff. And it really like, as they were starting to, like, think about getting serious, she was like, "I don't know." She's, "I'm not trying to deal with this." And I remember us having this conversation because at the time I was just like, "I don't really care what, man, I got my boundaries. I don't it's my house. I don't
Mhm.
know how they gonna get in if I don't let them in. That's something for him. He gotta explain why him and them are both in the driveway." Like, I'm very clear about that.
Mhm.
Um, but then, I dated someone that was, like, really close with their family, and I met their family, and I was interacting with their family, and then I was like, I get it. This is nice.
Mhm.
This is nice. You have
Okay.
parents that are appropriate with boundaries, they're very loving,
Yeah.
you guys have a great
Yeah.
communication, like, "Okay, I understand." Because,
Mhm.
like, my whole thing was like, I don't know, I really don't plan to be involved with their family. I don't know why, I don't know why you care this much about your partner's family. I have no plans to interact." And then I dated someone, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, this is nice when you can just kinda combine." And and everybody gets along, and it's fine, and they check in. His mom used to call me. Me and this man's mother used to have 4 he would, like, get home and be like, "What you
Mm.
doing?" I'm like, "On the phone with your mama." He's like, "Oh, hi, mom." Go take a shower, change, and come down, give me kids, start cooking. And he's like, "You still on the phone with my mom?" I'm like, "Yes."
Mhm.
She's holding me hostage technically, but yes, and I'm enjoying it. And there is a big difference. And so now it's something I'm more mindful of because if you have a certain standard of like, okay, I agree to be that emotional support animal to my
Mhm.
folks. And I'm like being patient, I'm being communicative, I am understanding. You kind of have to have someone that's on the same page because if you're not used to doing that,
Mhm.
if you don't have that level of tolerance, that will drive you crazy.
Mhm.
If you're the type of person that like, nah, I cut people off. The first time she cuts me out. That was it. I don't know why you're going back and forth with this crazy woman. That was it for me. And like trying to just create a family is hard.
It really is.
Creating
I mean,
families is hard.
I couldn't imagine because as you were saying this, I'm, like, thinking back to, like, some of my exes and their parents, and most I've gotten along with, it's been fine,
Mhm.
but there have been some where it's like, I just couldn't imagine, like,
Mm.
if we had stayed together and I had had to deal with their mother, and and there's other times where, like, again, I'd, like, see stuff online of people talking about, like, for example, especially around again, with grandchildren, because it opens up a whole
It
'nother floodgate,
does.
like, people around major events, period, people just get really brand new, and so when I read conversations of people talking about, like, who's allowed in the hospital room,
Girl.
and a lot of times and a lot of times you'll have women who are like, "Yeah, my mom can come in there, but, like, I don't know your mama like that," or, your parents, and then there's, like, always somebody in there that's like, "Oh, well, I hope you treat your parents you can't have a different set of rules for one set of grandparents versus another set of grandparents," and
Yes,
it's like,
I can.
"Yes, I can," like, this isn't about the grandparents, this is about me, and what's going on with my I'm the patient,
At
not
Thanksgiving, I don't want there to be a time that we can do a roll call of like, how many people have seen Russ's vagina and it's more than one person in the room?
That's what I'm saying. That's
Like,
what I don't get when I see people having these arguments. I'm like, someone and like when people make fun, like only I'm the patient. The woman is the
mhm.
patient. She's the one doing the thing. And I've thought about that with my partner. I'm like, you have a whole daddy, and I don't even know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? He's a great man.
The
No,
fact that I didn't process that at first, and I'm just like, "Mhm, mhm," and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, oh, you ain't got no daddy, I forgot. Ooh, hug the baby."
Oh God. But he's a
Mhm.
great guy. But
Yeah.
I don't want that man walking in the room while my business is all out and all these things are happening. Like, that's a no for me. That's a no
Mhm.
for me. I understand that you need him for that support, but he can wait outside. You can wait outside with him. I'm gonna need my mama.
It's such a intimate, experience, and, like, I remember, like, not even really being that comfortable with my mom being in there. Like,
Mhm.
I when I gave birth to my daughter, my mom was there, my dad was there, he waited outside, and then my partner was there, and still also, like, having moments of being like, "If y'all could stop collectively going down there to check, that'd be great, because 'cause I'm still human." You know?
I don't wanna imagine it.
I know. Maybe that's why they're close now, because my ex and my mom are still extremely close. She bought him a rug for this Christmas. This past Christmas, she bought him a rug. And I'm like,
Yeah.
now I gotta remember, like, they bonded over your vagina. You forgot.
They were both there having
You
summer
forgot. They're both
together.
there. Like, "Ah, we hope she recovers from this. We hope that bounces back."
That shit is too funny. But yeah, there's lots of people who feel entitled to being a part of just that experience alone. And it's like, no, there's a difference. Or, just in general, where people are like worried about their mother-in-laws because they're like these um crazy controlling ass people. But then on the other hand, well, I don't even want to say on the other hand, sometimes I do empathize and be like, oh, what's that like to be the parent of the, like, every now and then people will make jokes where they're like, I had a boy and now I realize I'm gonna be like
Mhm.
the grandma on dad's
Oh,
side, which
that's
is like which as for a lot of people, that's the person that gets the least amount of
yeah.
attention. Like, because hey, that's your fault if you ain't raised your son to come visit you and bring your kids over there. And if he's over here making his wife the primary default parent, and so the kid's always with her side of the family. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, hey, I don't know.
Mm.
That's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. Anywho, teaching boundaries.
No, because you're saying that, I'm just like, yeah, because my nieces and nephews from my brother, like, I see them once every 4 years because we live in different states. I don't know what my brother be
Mhm,
doing. He changed his number every 3 weeks. Like,
mhm.
it's just being on the father side, it's not
Yeah,
great.
yeah. For the extra family members, they don't really get as much. I don't think I'll have that. My partner's family is very
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your
his
partner's
parents
very,
are
very
calling me.
close and very also, though, you're in a situation where you live where his family is and not where your
Yeah,
family is.
as far as our parents are, because they're about equal distance away.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and they all visit us frequently. It's great. But I think, yeah, through us, like being there to, like, as we're trying to be like, all right, how do I pass on my kids these emotional? I want to take care of my kids' emotional needs. We end up like kind of coaching our parents too, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is how I would like for you to speak to my child. Please don't say the types of things that you said to me.
Yeah.
They were very damaging.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I know for me, like, religion's a hot spot for me. And so, like, I had a conversation because my daughter, one time, we were going somewhere and she was like, oh, we got to do a prayer. And it triggered the hell out of me. It triggered, like, your face, because you already
Mhm,
know. Like,
mhm,
and so I was just like, excuse me? Why do you even know what prayers are? I was planning to not tell you what that word meant till you were 18. Like, I was very triggered. And
mhm,
so I had a conversation with my mom, and it wasn't so much that I didn't want my daughter to pray. It's just I'm very particular because of certain experience I had in my childhood. Like, I want her to make that choice for herself. So if she decides
mhm,
that she's believing a religion, I want that to be for herself. And right now, she's not old enough to make that choice. So right now, we're practicing being good people. We're practicing doing good things. And then
mhm,
as she asks me questions, I'm willing to answer her, and I answer her honestly. But anywho, I had a conversation with my mom about that. Like, hey, I get it. And for her, it was no, baby. She just saw me praying. She asked me what it was. I was like, oh, I pray. I like to pray over my food, and it just makes me feel like an extra layer of protection that the food will be nourishing and it won't harm me, and that's why Grandma does it. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Good job, Grandma. That's a good explanation. At
yeah.
least it's like,
We'll see.
because you'll go to hell and famine will fall upon us if you're ungrateful for your food.
And my folks really weren't like hell and brimstone type of folks. That wasn't them, but they definitely ruined childhood. But there wasn't like
When I yeah. And that, okay, so even with like what you're talking about with combining with families, that is a whole thing, because some people were raised in like happy religious households where like
Mhm,
God is love and just go
mhm.
live your life and just remember Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's how they were raised. And then you have those of us that have like deep, deep religious trauma. And the idea of raising my children and anything that mimics that is like terrifying. And and I remember my partner being like, so I can't teach them my religion. I'm like, you don't even go to church. Shut up.
Girl, girl,
Why are you
girl.
worried about it?
remember dating somebody and, like, we were getting serious, and so we were having, like, those type of conversations, and he had asked me to lie to his mama. He was like, because we were talking about meeting parents and stuff. He was like, "Well, also, if you could just there's gonna be lots of crosses when we enter the house. There's gonna
Mm,
be lots of conversations. She might ask you to pray. If you could just lie to my mom." He was like,
mm,
let's just," and I was just like, "No." So it fostered a conversation about same thing, like, so
mhm.
then, okay, so the kids then will they just go to church with me? And I was like, "Negro, I have never seen you go to
Yeah,
church. What are you talking? Why are we having this imaginary conversation? Are you practicing?" Because I could not have I would not have known.
wouldn't have known, wouldn't have known, and now you wanna indoctrinate my
And
children.
I didn't want to indoctrinate her.
I have come to accept that some people are culturally Christian,
Yes,
right?
this
They're
is
not
true.
not necessarily they're not necessarily that religious, but, like, it's a cultural thing
Mhm.
because what else are they gonna do? I don't know, it's just something that's passed down, and then, yeah, when you go home and visit, if your mama goes, they go and they pray over their foods and stuff. Like, I've just come to accept that that is a thing, and I think that may be more the motto that I will allow my children to understand, like, there's cultural Christians out there. Like, it's just, like, something to be aware of. But, I'm like you, like, once you get old enough to, like, explore and figure some stuff out on your own, by all means, like,
Yeah.
pick what you're trying to do. But I don't but yeah, but that's a whole other thing. But the funny thing about it, again, going back to, like, being this emotional support, it's like when you remind older generations that they were like, and I try to have grace for it, but
Mhm.
also where you remind them of, like, yeah, remember when you told me I was gonna burn in hell for blah blah, and they're like, I would never say that. God is loving and forgiving. You're like, that is not what you taught me. They just, like, forget. Man, they forget so much. It is, oh my goodness, it is the biggest gaslight of all.
It is fascinating. It
But
is
also,
fascinating.
I try to have grace in a way of, like, again, like, they were just going through certain phases, like, as
Mhm.
we were growing up.
Yeah.
And the same way that, like, we have times where we might get on a kick
Yeah.
about something, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then if you have a child, it spreads to them too. Like, I think it's that. I think about, like, diet culture as well, because, like, my mom would go on these random ass diet kicks, and that meant we was all on diets, and it was Slim Fast in the fridge, and it was just very
Mhm.
strange.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, Mom, you had to drive through again? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is
Mhm.
not the person I was raised with. Um, but anywho, it's just kind of like, so I try to have grace in a way of, like, they were just adults, like, going through different phases and, like, trying to figure stuff out. And, like, we were just kind of kids that was just
Yeah.
there in the
Yeah.
middle of this kick. And I don't think they realize how
Impactful.
impactful.
Their phases were.
Yeah, and that's why for them, they can forget it, like, "You mean that time I was girl," and you like, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I was 9, and
Yeah.
you
To
told
them, they were
me."
like, "I only did that for 6 months." And you're like, "I missed my class, the big class field trip for that, and it impacted me for all of middle school." Like,
No, for
like
real. No, for real. That is a real thing.
it is. Well, and I've talked about this on the po either I don't know. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I know for sure I've told you, like, I got into crystals in, like, 2019.
Mhm.
And now my daughter brings home there's rocks everywhere. There's rocks in her room,
Mhm.
and they're not
Mhm.
crystals, but she thinks they are. If it's a pretty colored rock, she's gonna bring it
Mhm.
home because I went through this phase where I bought lots of crystals, and I had crystals in our living room and whatever, and
Mhm.
I just think they're pretty. I still like
Mhm.
them, and I still think they're
Mhm.
pretty. But now because of that, like, the other day, took my car to clean it out and was, like, vacuuming it, and something got stuck, and it was rocks. It was rocks because I took her to the park, and now there's rocks in her room, there's rocks in her car, there's rocks everywhere because
Yeah.
mommy got into crystals for a little bit. I mean, I still like them, but, like, at the time, I was like, "Yes, and amethyst, what does amethyst mean? Ah." What
Mhm.
is the Judy Hall book? Let me get that and read up on it. And, like, now I'm just like, "Okay, they're cool, they're pretty. I like them. I like them as jewelry, cool," and I leave them
Right.
alone. But I
You
did
simmer
have a
that
moment
down.
where I was, like,
Yeah.
on fire, and, like,
Yep.
that moment stayed with her.
Yep. That's what I try to remember because, like, yeah, they're like sponges at all phases of life. Yeah. And I'm like, you're we I now realize being an adult that, like, sometimes you just get kind of extreme about some stuff. and it doesn't always last. And thank goodness for that. But also, but also, if there was a little person around that was like watching this whole period of time, that could have really done some stuff to them.
There was a point in time I was, like, really into her father, and now she love that man. You know, it's just stuff they pick up on.
So stupid. Anywho, so yeah, we're trying to have some grace for the older gen, but it is hard. Like when you're reminding them of like, remember when you told me this thing, and
Mhm.
it has like shaped the entire rest of my life, and for them it was a Tuesday, and they like literally don't even remember, like no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's
I
a
think that's what makes it hard too to like do some of that emotional labor for them because we're like, this thing was so important, and they're just like, I don't know.
I mean, even have you ever tried to, like, show evidence, like a picture or something, and they're just like, "Yeah, huh, I guess that did happen." Anyways, and, like, that's it. That's it of the acknowledgement. "Yeah, guess you are right."
My mom's favorite thing is,
Mm,
"Well, I was in my 20s. What do you expect from me?" And I'm like and and having gone through my 20s, I get what she
no,
means. Like,
word,
I totally get it.
word.
So, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have children, at 19 because who knows what type of parent I would have been, to be very honest. To be
No,
very
word. I had my daughter at 26, well, 25, right before I turned 26,
Mhm.
and, uh, you know, that's better. I had a master's degree, I had some maturity,
Your brain was
traveled,
fully developed.
my brain was fully developed. It was developing as she developed, but, it was fully developed,
Mhm.
and that's very different. But I'm glad you brought that up because I'm gonna store that away for a future arguing with my mom. Like, y'all was 40. What was y'all excuse? Y'all was grown. Y'all was big grown.
Oh gosh.
What was y'all excuse? What was y'all doing?
Yes. Yes, but ew, we are the ones doing a live labor. So yeah, so for the millennials or the person, the people, the generation that is doing the emotional labor in your family, like have grace for yourself, man. We get why you're tired. We
Yeah.
get why family events are exhausting. Because you're the one that evolved and you're like, oh gosh, and it does take a lot. Because I know I remember realizing that that was a thing. Like this is what was making it hard for me to be around my family
Mm,
because of the way, well, because of my history with them and the way that I want to say the way that holding on to that history was
mhm,
impacting me. And, I've had to do some work to kind of just let things go, but also see some things for what they really are and be like, oh, bet that's why I want to avoid you.
yeah,
Like, there are certain people who, yeah, I'm still going to avoid them. I don't want them that close to me because I just
yeah,
know too much about them. But having that realization has
mhm,
really changed some things and has allowed me to be around my family and be a lot more comfortable and actually participate in stuff. Because as I've gotten older, it's become important to me. Like there probably was a time when I was younger where I was like, "Oh, y'all can go.
mhm,
I ain't gotta talk to you."
mhm,
And there are some people I'm still cool not talking to, but I've come to want those relationships in a different way now as I've gotten older. So it's like, okay, who can I have it with? How can I cultivate this? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? But I can't do it without being able to say my piece.
yeah,
Like I can't just sit here at this family event and you say some craziness and I just shut up about it. Like
yeah,
if that's the way it's gonna be, then I don't want to come.
yeah. So, like, while talking about being emotional support animals, um, there's kinda like when you see emotional support animals, they have, their little vests. They do certain things. They have certain trainings. Some of our training is this right here.
Mhm.
You hear how I'm talking? This is not my regular voice, but it's calming. It's
Mhm.
letting you know that this is a safe place. I
Yeah.
know Olive Garden should have more waiters to serve us at 5 p.m., but they're not, so we should be nice to her. It's not his fault. I understand. You're right. They did sit down after us and got their food before us. But hey, 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 you notice? It's very busy in this section. It's just her. It's just her. We should cut her a break. She seems so tired. Yeah. She looks about 17. Let's be nice to her. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job. Oh, look at you. You know, you put on that voice. There's a professional voice.
No, it's really a whole that's really a whole thing. Even like when I think about in the workplace of like having to have a certain tone about things or certain and I mean I believe in professionalism to an extent. I don't like professionalism that like erases a person's identity. But yeah, there is a certain way that you have to be like, "Oh yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh, yes ma'am."
Mhm.
To make everyone feel like everything's okay. It's cool. Don't yell at me. It's fine. You know?
Your voice is
Like,
very loud. This situation doesn't call for that. Yeah.
mhm,
Mhm. No, I understand that you're frustrated. Yeah. Could you say
mhm.
that and not yell it? Good for you. I knew you could do it. Yeah. Yeah. There's some like reverse baby talk going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's literally about what it feels like because that's how we have to. That's what I'm saying, man. I read something that I found hilarious that was basically saying that a professional voice is just baby talk for boomers.
It is. It
It
really
is.
is.
It really is. And I feel like that's why we're exhausted. We have to like gentle parent the children. We're gentle parenting the older people, like all around. We're the ones that are like, okay, I am just like la 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 la. But it is like, yeah, when I first read that, I thought it was hilarious because I'm like, that's what that is because no one else cares about that. Like there are so many people I think in our generation who are like, honey, come in, do your job, go about your business. Like no one, it's not an issue. But like there's so much, I don't even know if I want to call it etiquette,
Mhm.
but maybe that is the right word for lack of a better term. Like there's so much like performative
Mhm.
etiquette type crap that you have to do when you're interacting with people
Yeah.
significantly older than you so that they feel comfortable and feel like you're not being like rude or disrespectful. I'm just
Mhm.
cuz I'll never forget. And I feel like that was more of a thing when I moved to South Carolina that I was like, what the where there were so many people that was like, well, I don't want to be mean. And I'm like, this is work. This is like business. Like there's stuff that just has to be said
Mhm.
because it needs to get done. And like I guess because it's like I feel like I understand just like I would assume someone else might like we understand like some stuff just got to be said because we got
Mhm.
to get it done. It's not personal, it's not a big deal, baby. This is work. Do your job and go home.
Mhm.
But there is this whole other um group, I'll say also generation of people where it's like, yeah, that was like a whole thing
Mhm.
where you
They
like
grew up with rules, like, they were the rules generation. They were the, like, if you do A, you do B, C will happen, and so they like things very much in order of like, yeah, no, A and B and C. It's why and don't get me wrong, we're all kinda, like, a little bit annoyed with, like, people who get famous for no reason, but I'm convinced that's why it pisses them off so much
Mhm,
because they were
mhm.
like, "What's their talent?" They were supposed to have a Me Too moment before and have talent before we made them anyways,
Yeah,
they, like,
yeah.
have these rules that don't make a lot of sense, and they're just, like, really adamant. They can let me not say they can sometimes be really adamant about it, and I think that is why our millennials are the generation that is very much about emotions and feelings and understanding self and others,
Mhm, mhm.
because we're like, "We did these rules, and it didn't work."
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of emotional damage, and now we realize that the world we live in does not even the rules do not apply.
Mhm,
So let's learn
mhm.
about self and discovery.
Yeah,
And they're
and
just
we
like, no."
and we're a little bit more and that's what's so funny is because they call us snowflakes. And yet, like, we're so much more about, like, let's just cut through the BS, and I was laughing because I saw someone doing, like a bit about, like, your millennial manager and how they're like, "Alright, guys, Friday meetings, don't we all hate this? Let's cut to the Slack. Let's get to whatever, whatever," and I was cracking up because I was like, "That is so me." That
Girl.
is so me in management, like, I am now that person that's like telling myself, like, if you just sitting there pretending to look at your computer, please go home. Like, stop sitting there. Whereas in like when I was younger, and my supervisors were older folks. No, no, no. If the clock don't say it, like I said, the damn performative shit of it, of like,
Mhm.
you must sit here until 5 because we're paying you. And you're like, I am doing nothing.
Nothing. Mhm.
There is nothing to be done. Why must I sit here because the rules say?
I remember I had a worker, I was like the supervisor, and I had sent them an email because something was wrong with their notes or whatever, something like that. I had to send them an email just like, hey, if you can fix this, blah, 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 blah. I need it by this date or whatever. Or no, I don't even think I gave them that. I was like, hey, at some time point, can you fix this? And I was working on a Saturday because that's who I am as a person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they emailed me back, like, "I'm so sorry, Rest. I was like, and I replied back to them, "Girl, don't you ever feel the need to reply back to me on a Saturday. I'm here because this is what I'm doing." I was like, "Worry
100%.
about that on Monday."
100%. Yeah. I remember working with someone of a different generation. That lady called me at like 7, I don't know, but it was late. It was
Mhm.
not during work hours. And she was like, I'm just now able to get around and turn your phone call. And I was like, let me tell you right now, there is not a damn thing I need that is gonna ever require you to call me after hours. This could have definitely waited till the morning. I'm not gonna do anything with this information. Please don't do this again. I'm excited to see what our generation does with parenting, like how kids turn out from that. My partner and I were talking
I
about
think we
that.
might have went too far, to be honest with you. I feel like we also went too far, and we're gonna have also our kids.
Yeah,
They're gonna be
it'll be
talking to
okay.
us about some things.
Yeah, it'll be all right. But we'll hopefully we'll be receptive and we won't be so indignant to think that we did everything right. Like, my partner's father was visiting this past weekend and he was telling us a story about like when he married um his wife and his mom.
Mhm.
And he was saying like, yeah, like my father-in-law told me if you have to beat her, just send her back. Now we were like, what? What? And he was like, those was the times, you know? And he was like, and of course I was like, I'm not gonna beat her. Like, but it's just like the fact that from their
The
parents'
stories
generation,
that our parents' generation tells us, and that we just be like,
right?
"What?"
And but like the fact that like for him, like the generation before him
Mhm.
were of that, like smacking your wife around was just, you know, run of the mill type shit. That was family management, I guess. I don't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Where you felt the need to tell. But thankfully, that generation was coming out of that phase and was like, what an absurd thing. No, I would not. I'm not going to hit her. Not marrying your daughter
Look
to beat on her. But then he tells us this story as a funny anecdote, and we're like in horror. Like, what the fuck?
look, my family's a funny anecdote. It's just I come from a long line of women whose husbands
Mysteriously died.
did mysteriously disappeared. I come from a long line of women who like to cook girl grits extra hot.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like, as a kid, you're like, "Yeah."
That's funny. Ha ha ha. And then you're like, oh,
Then you get
okay.
older, you're like, "We kill it? Okay."
But it makes me I always makes me think of my neighbor back when there was like this older woman and I remember her talking about her husband. She was like, he always kept a job and it didn't beat me. And I was
I
like,
remember you telling me that.
what kind of
Yeah.
I want my standards to be higher, but also again, like thinking about the fact that like so you for real came from a time where like that was some real and that's and then we know that domestic violence things like that still happen now, but it's not okay. We all know it's not okay,
Yeah.
right? It's not normal. That shouldn't it's not the expectation.
Mhm.
Whereas in those
It's
days, like
secret.
right, right. It's because because it's shameful behavior.
Mhm.
Whereas in back in those times, like you just be lucky if your husband was a nice man that didn't beat you. Like, what the fuck?
Girl.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I can't imagine it. Anyway. So yeah, they went through a lot, man.
They did. They
Um,
did. I mean, and they
yeah.
have a lot of great stuff to we can
Mhm.
learn from them from, like, I love, I mean, I might know here. I love the boomers' work ethic. I was in a position before where I had some folks and, the folks at the time before, it was like a mixed group of ages, and that
Mhm.
was interesting, and then the next time, they were older, and they were
Mhm.
great, and they were qualified. It was so great, and maybe some of it is because of that formality, like
Mhm. Mhm.
and they did enjoy it when we were like, "Hey, cut loose a little. Hey, we don't have to be that stiff," and they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, fun colors, okay." Like, they were very obviously It was
You're
good,
introdu
but, like, also from my side, it was
Mhm.
awesome because I was like, "Hey," I
Yeah,
didn't have to do a lot of checking in and checking up, like, I was there, I was available, but, like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's brilliant. I find like you got to teach them like we can still get our work done and have fun.
yeah,
It's all right. I have not been so fortunate as to have the experience that you had.
yeah,
No,
okay.
no, I had more like so in email. Um, the process is that you email it, and I don't see why you couldn't have. It makes me think about. I remember at one time when we were working together, and we had it. We had an intern. I don't know if you were there. I think you did.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it was an older person, and she yeah, I don't know, she was a little the uptake was I expected that because of her background that, like, there was just certain things she was gonna know, she was gonna be up on. If you
mhm,
don't know, you was gonna ask questions, and we were gonna figure this thing on out. And that's just not what happened, and stuff was just not getting done. And then I had to follow back up, and I can't stand to have to follow behind folks. And I remember by the end of her time there, she was like, "Some of y'all never worked with me again." And I was cracking up because I just knew I was one of the people who was like, I yeah, you're right. I dismissed you
fair
because
point.
I had way too much going on in that job to be holding some older person's hand. I mean, I had a lot more grace maybe for someone a little bit younger, I guess, because it's like I get it. You're just a little baby college student, you don't know what. But when it was like, this like your second career, Anna? Like, why do I have to tell you these things? Like, I don't have it in me to do this. That was yeah, but I'm not that way anymore. I think I could work better with
Yeah,
her.
no, I had a great experience on that front. I did. It was fun. It was fun. They're great.
That's
They are
wonderful.
great. But also like yeah, yeah, no. It was fun. It was great. I even w I feel like I also like I really appreciate sometimes the bluntness of sometimes when you are interacting because there's certain topics like I get people want us to tiptoe around. They want blah blah blah. But there's certain things that again, I just want like it is what it is. And I think sometimes with millennials, with the younger generations, we have been taught like, hey, it is that feelings thing. It is, but kind of like you said, there's certain things that you just gotta say. There's certain
Mhm,
things that are gonna be they're gonna hurt people's feelings. There's certain
mhm,
things that are um yeah, there's no way to soften the blow
mhm,
and I have appreciated that again. But even sometimes, even like family things where it's like, yeah, so Imma just let you know this because we ain't got time for you to get it wrong 8 times because no one's telling you exactly what's happening and we hoping you pick up on context clues. I do
mhm,
appreciate that. Um, Going back to them like being like emotional support service animals, it's a job that's needed. If we didn't do it, I think we will have more clashes than the ones that we are currently having. And you have those that are really open to learning and into changing and to growing. Again, with both of my parents, like even my mom, and my mom has just done a lot of changes on her own again. The mother I have right now is not the person who raised me at all. Like she's just not. They're two
mhm,
completely different human beings.
mhm,
And I'm thankful for that. And she was amazing. She's amazing now. But you know, when she first moved down here, I remember we had a conversation about boundaries. You know, my parents had went through a divorce, and so she wanted to talk to me about my dad, and I was just like, no,
mhm, mhm,
like I get it. I'm grown. I think I was 30 at the
mhm,
time. Like I get it. I'm grown. I'm 30. I know you watch Gilmore Girls. You thought this was going to be different. I don't want to have those conversations with you. Talk to your sisters. You got like 6 of them. Go talk to one of them sisters.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
remember, like, one time we were driving I think I picked her up from the airport. She had came home from, like, visiting a aunt one of my aunts, I'm sure. And, my dad did something ignorant, and she wanted to talk about it, and I remember just being like, "Hey, no." And she was like, "Aren't you supposed to be a therapist? And everybody else can talk to you about these emotional things." And I was like, "So this is called boundaries."
mhm.
because me and you have an emotional connection. The person you wanna talk about, I have an emotional connection to. I don't wanna be in the middle of y'all stuff.
Mhm.
If you want me to know that, hey, sometimes he's not that great, I am very aware, but we can't have I was like, "But I don't," and we had this conversation, and at the time, it was really hard. Like, she was very mad at me. She did not appreciate me saying, "Yeah, it's called boundaries."
Mhm.
That was not
Mhm.
great. But after, like, having those conversations, like, she respected it. And
Mhm.
later we were able to have a conversation where she was like, "You know what? You're right. That was not fair for me to lay that on you."
Mhm.
Because she was like, "I also know if you're doing that to me, that means you're doing it with your dad." And I'm like, "Yeah. Y'all don't talk. Neither one of y'all allowed to talk to me about the other. I don't tell neither one of y'all what the other person's doing. I don't tell y'all each other's business. I don't. How are you? Let's talk
Mhm.
about you."
Mhm.
Mm. And it was, appreciated, and she took that, and now we're able to have, certain conversations because now I know that you know my boundaries and you respect them, and so
Mhm.
now I feel more comfortable having conversations with you because I don't feel like I'm going to get bombarded or sideswiped me
Mhm.
just being like, "Oh, what about your day? Good, da, 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 da. Hey, 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 please, why are we talking about this?" I don't have to worry about that now. And even with,
Mhm.
like, my father, like, me and him had to have a conversation where, again, I just told him, like, "Yo, you did certain things that, like, just weren't cool, and I don't know if you thought I just wasn't aware, but I was aware, and this is
Mhm.
how it impacted me," in seeing him handle that because I was terrified to have that conversation. I'm a big person who used to be really, really big on cutting people off, automatically asking no questions, and I get that from my dad. That's how my dad is. That's where I picked that up from, and so I was terrified, like, I'm grown, man, he can cut me off. He used to
Mhm.
have to pay for me. That was a whole defects case. I think that's the only reason he did not cut me off before, like, I was like, "I
Mhm.
don't know." He has that option. I was really terrified, and we were able to have this conversation. We were able to talk about, like, my boundary. We were able to talk about, like, "Hey, these are the things you do and did that hurt my feelings. This is how it impacts me." And him being able to be like, "Yo, I had no idea." Or I have my own stuff going on. I forgot that you even had feelings. I was just like, she a little person. She watches cartoons, eating cereal. I had no idea you was having this whole emotional thing. My bad. In actually having changed behavior. Again, I told you the man went to therapy. The therapist is wrong, but he's trying, and that's fine. I think I told you, like, my dad was like, we had this conversation. He was like, "Yes,
Mhm.
I told my therapist, like, I'm really struggling with just feeling bad sometimes about some of the things I did to hurt y'all. And he told me that, you got to let that go. And you're so hard on yourself about how, and you just make yourself so responsible for other people's feelings." I was like, that is not his problem. That's not it. That's wrong. That has never been his thing. I don't know what story he told him.
Mhm.
I think my dad got it because the whole time he had this conversation with me, I was like, mm, okay. Okay. And so are the feelings that you're concerned about from other people in the room with us, are they
Mhm.
here? Okay. All right. Well, cool. But he's trying.
Mhm. And that
And
matters.
that, yeah. And now, like,
Yeah.
I look at my parents as people who are like a somewhat emotional safe space. And I did not as a child. I did not. They
Mhm.
were loving. They were great people. And I knew they loved me. I knew they cared. I knew that they were trying. But
Mhm.
also at that time, it felt like they were very stuck in their ways. And
Mhm.
now I'm like, no, you are these adaptable people.
Mhm.
And I needed that then, but I also need it now. And I appreciate that you're giving it to me now.
As we heal ourselves, we are able to heal those around us. And I think that's the beautiful thing of it. Like we talk about it, like it's hard, it's a lot of emotional labor, but when we're able to successfully do that, and it does come from like us working ourselves and realizing certain things, I think it is beautiful when we're able to share that out with our family so that we can have these close relationships and so that they get to experience these things too. Like, gosh, it's you know when you see people just like stuck in their ways their whole life. Like I said, my grandma's mean. I'm like, you are too old to be this way, lady. Like, like let us love you. And so unfortunately we haven't crossed that threshold with her. But hey,
It
my
always surprises me whenever every time you say that, I'm just like, I thought old people switch up to get into heaven once they hit like 80. Like they just start being nice. Because there's lots of old people I know personally that I'm just like, yeah, the sweetest thing. And then you talk to the people they raised, and they was like, they are devil's spawn. What do you need? She nice to you now because she trying to get into heaven. That's what my family used to always say. Nice because she trying to get into heaven.
no. That lady, she's nice to me. I'm a
Mhm.
favorite grandchild. But she don't let us love her the way that we could. Like I'm just gonna say that right there.
Fair enough,
But
fair enough.
either way, um, mean as a snake, as they would
Mhm.
say. But yeah, but it's like when you see people like that, it's like, man, you just stuck in your ways. Like, just like chill. Like, let us soften you up so you can see what this is like. And so I'm glad when we're able to give that gift to our parents of like, this is what it's like. This is what
Mhm.
it's like to set around you. This is what it's like to feel emotionally safe. This is what it's like to open these things up.
Mhm.
I think it's a beautiful thing, but yeah, it takes some work
Yeah,
on our part to be able to get to a point where we can have these conversations. And so I'm an advocate of like when we heal ourselves, we heal generations before us and
yeah.
after us. And like we're doing the work, girl. We're doing
We
it.
are, we are. Look, my parents are safe places. If anything happened to me, I would be okay with them raising my daughter.
Mhm. Yeah, same. I could do with my mom raising my child if she had to.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
so that's that growth.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's a lot of emotional labor, but hey, there's possibility for payoff. And I just want to say also, there's a possibility that it's not. And you have to set that's you look, when you go into this type of thing, I'm such a big believer in before you go into anything, decide in your head how far you're going to let this go before you
Hmm.
have to pull back
Hmm.
before you start stuff because it's real hard to recognize when you need to stop before if you go into something and you don't make that decision and things just start happening, then it's
Yeah.
kind of hard because then you're now trying to like calculate and blah blah blah. But if ahead of time I'm like, I'm going to set my boundaries. I'm going to try to communicate. I'm going to try to set grace and so forth. But if they're still disrespectful to me, if they're disrespectful to my partner, if they're still
Hmm.
refusing to treat me as an adult, if they're still causing massive harm, and this is how I'm going to categorize harm, then I am going to say, okay, cool, then I need to pull back.
Hmm.
And then making that decision within yourself and then kinda setting that all going into that, especially for those of you who maybe are separated from your parents or haven't really talked and you're considering especially for those of you in therapy now, you're having the conversations, you're like, "Okay, I think I wanna try again with them." For some people, you want to. I personally have made the decision with my biological father, that's someone I never plan to ever talk to again
Hmm.
that I don't want to have contact with you. There's no way for that to be healed or forgiven. But for some people, it is, no, I do want to heal that. I
Hmm.
do want to give them a chance. That was back then. They could have changed. I have changed. I miss them. I have a desire to have them in my life. And I
Hmm.
think there's nothing wrong with that. But kind of make sure you're not setting yourself up for disappointment. And a part of that is by recognizing what boundaries you need to have for yourself before you go into that. And then
Hmm.
you respecting your own boundaries by recognizing, okay, this person has not changed and maybe I do need to pull back.
Hmm. Great point. Yeah.
So that's all we have for today's episode. We hope you guys enjoy. Be sure to follow us on TikTok at She Wolf Alchemy Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at She Wolf Alchemy. We'll have a new episode for you guys next Sunday. Bye.